Thank you, everybody, for joining us today to take a look at Sage Intacct and how the product might be able to benefit you moving forward. Just a quick agenda. We're going to start off high level talking about Alliance, and then a little bit of background on Sage Intacct, and then we'll go ahead and get into the product demonstration. So a lot of you out there, I recognize a lot of names on today's call, are current clients of Alliance Solutions Group. Just wanted to point out a couple things. Alliance Solutions Group has 5,000 clients nationwide with our implementation process for with Alliance Connects. We are over 95% successful in those implementations, and we have now over 70 plus consultants and team members working with Alliance. As a lot of you know, Intacct is not the only product we represent. We are also a full Sage provider, Sage 300 and Sage 100, and we also partner with other companies like AvidXchange and TimberScan. Some awards and recognitions we've won. We were Business Partner of the Year for 16 years running now. Last year we were awarded the President's Club Award for the largest global Sage partner. And we are a Platinum Elite partner also with Sage for multiple years in a row. One of the questions we always get talking to individuals and companies out in the marketplace is, why Sage Intacct? Why not just rewrite one of the products we already have? And that comes down to Sage having over 50,000 clients. That's not users, clients using their products for construction and real estate. And Sage wanted to make sure that we could give them that next level as quickly as possible. And when Sage acquired Intacct, it provided a very strong financial solution that would easily be able to be added to increase the performance of the software that you're currently using and allow us to bring it to you, allowing you to go up to that next level, the web-based software, quicker. Sage is recognized for finance and leadership by experts. This is a very big one right here for Sage Intacct. Intacct is the only construction SaaS software ERP that has the recommendation of the AICPA. So strong financials, if you're being audited, things like that, that is a very big get for Sage, and the only package out there that has that award distinction. We also have won multiple years for the G2 Crowd's customer satisfaction. And a lot of that comes from something that really can't be put into a box, which comes down to ease of use. And ease of use really is a perception. I think you're going to see that as we're going through the product today. Also, we are awarded the Visionary Award, showing that we are constantly looking forward in the construction industry and bringing the new technology into the software. So one of the things that people are always concerned about going to a web-based platform is how reliable it is and how good is the security. And one of the things I point out is that Sage Intacct Sage is a publicly traded company, and we have a lot of very large publicly traded companies using the software. So there are certain things that you have to meet as far as cybersecurity, just to be able to handle those kind of things. One of the things a couple of things I like to point out is the uptime of the software is 99.8%. Now, typically that 0.2%, that is going with like things like upgrades and stuff like that in the background, and they are typically happening in the middle of the night, so they don't affect you. Sage is also SOC 1 and SOC 2 compliance. One of the things I point out right here is with your tenant, Sage gives you extra capacity within the server, and it helps with the reliability and the stability of the product. You know, anybody that's been around, doing something online around 3:30 in the afternoon when all the kids come home and everybody hits the internet, everything seems to slow down. You don't have that in Intacct because of this capability right here. There's redundancy in the backup. There's full nightly logical and physical backups. The backups are stored on site and off site. And Sage rehearses quarterly, being able to bring everybody back up within 96 hours to a specific point in time. We've never had to do anything like that. Sage has never had anybody get into the software and do anything to cause any problems with Intacct. And that's for 16 years now. So it really does have great security. Did it switch them?
Yes, it did. Good to go.
Okay. A couple of things with Sage Intacct. Sage Intacct is a very open system with open APIs. And with that 50,000 users that are using Sage softwares right now, you have lots of industry corporations racing to the marketplace to develop integrations to Intacct. This is a short list. You can go out to Sage Intacct's marketplace and see all the different people that are integrated. And what's nice about this, for anybody on the call that might be using something like a Procore with Sage 300 or 100, these interfaces don't require a third party. There's no middleware. They are direct read and write integrations using the APIs in the system. I like to show this slide. This is just a Procore slide showing that integration and how it integrates back and forth. All of this is available on those sites also on Procore's marketplace. You can see this information, but it shows how dedicated these other companies are to developing integrations with Intacct. I want to talk about one more thing before we jump into the product. Sage Intacct is a dimensional-driven software. Dimensions are a way that all of the transactions get categorized, cataloged into those different containers to be able to report off of them better and more easily. And dimensions are everything from your companies, departments and classes or customers to the projects and the cost codes, really allowing us to get some great information on the back end of the software through reporting. Just as an example, if you look right here, I can use those dimensions through financial reporting. So I can have things like my locations, my entities across the top of a financial report. And within the report, I can break down different sections by any entity or any dimension I want. So for instance, in this case, gross profits broken down by the profit centers. But down here in utilities and facilities, we have that reporting by vendor. And you're going to have that flexibility in the reporting, which I'm going to show you at the end of this presentation. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so today we're going to start out looking at some of the ease of use functionality that contributes to Sage winning that G2 award for customer satisfaction. Starting off on this default homepage. I like to start here just to point out a couple of things. You can have things like message boards inside the system, letting people know about important things coming up, whether it's a bid date, audit, vacations, whatever it may be. You can launch into the help center or video libraries from here. And right up here, you see our release notes. Intacct has 4 major releases a year. Now, what's beneficial to this is a couple of things. Number one, it is a multi-tenant software, so we do not have to push software out to you to be downloaded, to be uploaded into your servers, anything like that. There's no loss in productivity. There's no rebooting of computers. You literally come in the next day and it's done. You're on the latest version. About 2 weeks before the release come out, they'll put the release notes here. It'll say release 2 coming. This one actually came out last Friday. We can go in and we can watch videos. We can read all the release notes. You can see prior release notes. You can see the release calendar. As you can see, the release came out on May 12th. Next one's on August 18th. But what's also nice about this is anybody that's ever been with the software where you're installing software and things, and maybe there's a little fix or maybe there's something else they want to add. Now you're going through that whole process again. Well, Sage can push out overnight adds and fixes right into the software. They don't have to wait till the next release or anything like that. So it's real-time information. And they do a great job of explaining what they're doing. It's broken down by the different applications. You can go in, you can look at things, you can see exactly what they're doing. If there's a video, you can see a video on it. This allows you to know exactly what's happening, see screenshots, see everything before it ever gets into the system, allowing you to use that new feature set the day the software comes out if you want to. Okay, so coming back out with the modern intuitive layout, I'm going to just talk about a couple things in the layout. Number one, it is a multi-entity system. If you have multiple entities, they can be all inside of one data folder, allowing for things like intercompany transactions to happen. Right now, I am at a top level in the system. Top level is an automated, consolidated level. It consolidates everything into the system for me. I can work across all my companies from here. Below that are the actual entities. And below that, we can have locations for those entities. We can have departments, classes, and with the structure and with dimensions, for those of you that might be in a multi-entity system where you're having to break the GL out with prefixes to do this kind of reporting, that is not necessary inside of Intacct. So you have a much more simplified general ledger. We can also do things with those dimensions. If I come down here to the reporting section, you can set up something called dimension groups. This is great for a lot of our developers and people like that that set up a company for every new project, things like that, and they want to be able to group certain companies together. We can predefine those groupings. It's real easy to do, and I can do it in any dimension. But in this case, we'll look at location. All you do is set up a group name and then tell it what goes inside of it. So it's real easy, and I'm going to show you how that can be used throughout the system. Coming across the top, you can see that you have the ability to adjust preferences. Each individual user can do this. So they can go in and update phone numbers, things like that. But if we scroll down, they can define what their start page is, a dashboard or reports, or maybe even an entry screen. You can define the order of your menu, how many records show up on different pages, how decimal places work, type ahead suggestions. Maybe you want to use the enter key instead of the tab key to move between fields in a record. All of that is definable at a user level. If I hit save, every other user can have something different in here. It just lends itself to that ease of use. Intacct also has a built-in collaboration feature. This allows me to collaborate internally on any record or any transaction, no longer needing to send all the emails, the text messages, things like that. I can actually have that entire conversation right on the record, so everybody's on the same page. Coming back across, we'll look at our applications. You only see applications that you've been given access to. Within the application, you see an all-in setup. All is where you do things. whether it's running reports, entering an AP invoice, creating a job, where setup allows us to define the application to your needs. You can also see the gold stars. Those are my favorites. Any task inside the system, I can hover over and just click that star. It adds it to what I like to call a quick hit list menu of things I do all the time. You can even have a visual workflow. If you'd like to see that more visually, I have accounts payable. Just double click on it and I have that more visual look and feel to the software. Whatever makes it easiest for that end user to use the software. That's the key here. All right, so let's keep moving along and talk about some of the other features available inside the software. Intacct, as I mentioned, is a multi-entity platform. It allows for the entities and locations, all with automatic consolidations because they're all dimensions. One of the neat features I found inside the software is the global search capability right here. What global search allows us to do is it allows us to search across every company and every transaction in the system. I can search across dollar figures, names, strings of text. I could use an invoice number or a job number, and I can search for anything I want. Now, in this case, I'm going to just search for a bill that's $5,600. And when I hit go, it's going to search across all of my companies, which I got 6 companies in here, and it's going to find all the bills for me. And from here, for those of you that have been around inquiries, this kind of looks like an inquiry, right? But what's nice about this is when I click on view, it's not going to open another inquiry. It opens the actual transaction. So I drilled right into that bill from that lookup. And in Intacct, when we look at a record, whether it's a bill, a subcontract, anything along those lines, we have all the information we need to talk about it, whether it's with a vendor or project manager, whoever it may be. If you look at this bill, I have attachments. For those of you that may have some strings around attachments in the product they're using, these are true attachments. It's not a pointer to someplace on a server. It is actually attached. It makes a copy of the document and it attaches it into the system. I can see things like that it was paid and when it was paid and with what check number. I can see how we distributed it. I can see the collaboration on it. I can come up and I can actually see who actually entered the document, who last modified it. You could even see a full audit trail if you want to without having to leave this record. And if you look at this record, anything in blue can be drilled into. So maybe I want to know more about this check. I wrote it 9 months ago. Well, I can go in and I can see, all right, that's what it did. It was written out of that bank account. And I can go even deeper without leaving this record. I can see, well, it's still in transit. It hasn't cleared my bank account yet. And if I want, I could void it right here without having to go to another screen. It's just that ease of use and having all the data you need available wherever you are in the system. Intacct also has the ability to do dashboards. I'm going to come in and open up a dashboard for you. On a dashboard, we can have KPIs. You can have actual reporting. So if you wanted a financial statement or something like that on your dashboard, you can have it. I can look down here. You can embed webcams from job sites, things like that. You can have charts and graphs, that collaboration feature if you want that. All of it with drill down capabilities. And when we look at this, I have a date. Intacct is very date specific. In other words, when I'm looking at something, I'm not just looking at it by periods. I can find a specific point in time and look at that information. And we don't archive information in any way, meaning it never gets moved into a history folder. It never gets into some archive or something, so you'd have to report off of a different folder and different record to get this information. It's always available. So anybody that's been around and had to try to run a financial statement, maybe from 3 years ago because of some audit, well, you might not be able to do it. We can do it in here. And like I said, specific date and time. This is sample data. So when I roll back, I'm not going to have a lot, but I can go in here and say, show it to me as of March 9th, 2020. When I hit apply, it's going to show it to me as of March 9th, 2020. All that information just got updated and gave it to me as of that date. I can come back in and put it back up. I'll put it back into December here. I'll just do it as the 27th. I can also use dimensions here. I'm at a top level, for instance. This is consolidating. Maybe I just want it for a specific company. Apply, and I will get it for that specific company as of that date. I could have used the group. Remember that group I showed you? And done it this way. So it's those combined companies, and I'm seeing it as of that date. Or maybe you want to see a particular division. I could do that. So you can mix and match and get to the data you want very easily. I'm going to go ahead and drill down into this company here. By the way, yes, you can secure companies also inside the system. So if I come into this particular company, and I could have done this from that top level too. So if I wanted to go in here and maybe run this project performance dashboard. Now, this is going to show me all of my project information. Yes, on a dashboard, you can have project information and financial information. It doesn't limit you. It's just the sample data is set up this way. And we have those same types of dimensions here to be able to sort and filter this data. For instance, if you wanted it for a particular company, you could have that. Maybe you want it for a particular type of project you do. You can go in here and say, show it to me for that project type. And it will resort and refilter all this information as of that date for that project type. And that's what I will see here. Maybe you want it for a particular project manager. Well, let's go down here and pick a project manager and apply it. And it's going to change all the information on this dashboard that relates to this project manager. You can also see, because of dimensional reporting capability, we can have things like project profitability, a P&L by project, a P&L by customer. We can collapse fields on these, but you can have all of that type of data very easily. And I mentioned things in blue are drill down capable. Well, hey, let's look at this cost. I'm going to click on it. It's going to drill down, show it to me by my cost of sales labor, my subcontract, the invoices, who it was made out to. Maybe I want to know what this is. Well, it's in blue. Click on it. And in 2 clicks, I went from the total cost of a job into the actual transaction to get all the information I need. All right, so let's move on and talk about job costing in the system. So Intacct gives us a lot of flexibility that you do not currently have in your systems, most likely. When I come out and I look at things like a standard cost code catalog, most of you have to stay within the confines of some type of numbering scheme so that it knows how to group things together and do things around those cost codes. Now, if you're using a third party, you might still have some limitations, like a Procore, because it may have some limitations. But Intacct does not. And that's because when we look at these, we use a parent-child relationship. And with a parent-child relationship, it no longer matters the numbering scheme. And alphanumeric, you can see here, I have 00 railings, and you can see 00 aluminum, 00 steel, which you would assume would roll up to 00. But then I have one just called welding that also does. And it's because when we set these up, we tell it where it rolls up to. So you can really have a customized cost coding structure in your system. And as you can see, I can have multiple looks and feels to it. We aren't confined inside of Intacct. The same thing holds true when we talk about the projects in Intacct. We have true parent-child relationships. We can even go grandchildren, great-grandchildren. So where does this come into play? Well, you might have a development that has multiple phases to it. You might be doing a job that has multiple buildings to it, multiple homes, anything along those lines. Here's one that is Riverbend subdivision, where I have the clubhouse separated from pre-development versus phase one and all the lots inside of it, each one having their own reporting, yet being able to roll up to the top. And it's that same situation. It's a parent-child availability. So when I go into this project, you're going to see I have my customer, I have my hotel type job, I have the parent project if there is one. I can tell it I want to invoice this with the parent instead of by itself. If you want to, you can add multiple fields to these, not just to a custom field screen. I can add fields to any screen in this system if there's something else you need. Here's my project manager. I have the ability to have additional information, like an observed percent complete instead of a calculated percent complete. It still has that one, but what we've learned is that's not always the true percent complete on a job because of knowledge you have about the job that may not be in the system. So we have a way to track that and even use that in WIP reporting if needed. Coming down below, this is also where we tell it what company, what division this job's for. It's all available to me right there. I can see my project summary, how much we spend in material, labor, subcontract, the actual billings to date. I have my budgets for the developers in there. You can see I can have multiple budgets. Maybe you have a preliminary budget and then your final budget. And we can report off of all those. All of this information could be imported if you want to. As you can see right from the screen, I can enter my budget, cost code, cost type, amounts, so that I will have the availability of budget versus actual reporting. Right here, this is a brand new field, so I don't have any data on this right now. Sage just added this to where I can click right here and I can see all of my commitments for this job. I can see who the vendor is, the original amounts, changes, how much invoices out there, how much has been retained, how much has been paid. High level overview of all my purchase orders. But Intacct also allows us to add intellectual property to it, which you can see right here with this Alliance Solutions Group query. And this is something that we give you that allows you to see everything that's happened on the job with drill down capabilities into any of it, sorting capabilities, lookup capabilities, all right here from the project screen. Intacct does have a very unique ability when it comes around commitments. If I go out to my commitments, you can see that I have purchase orders and subcontracts, but you get to define the workflows for those. They're called transaction definitions. So as I look at these, I can see how I do a purchase order. I do a purchase order, I like to do a receipt or an invoice against it. If I do the receipt, I like to do an invoice against the receipt. That's my workflow. You can make it as complex as you want. I have all sorts of things built into mine, from purchase requisitions all the way through. You can make these very complex or very simple depending on how you want to use the system. The same thing with our subcontracts. Once those are set up and I go in and take a look at something like a subcontract, I'm going to go in and open one up here. We'll open this one. And I view it, you're going to see that on this record, as I mentioned before. I have everything I need on this record. I can have attachments, as you can see right here. I see when this was created, what the totals are, how many the change orders to it. As I scroll down farther, I can put scope and things like that in here. If you want to create this document out of the system, there's a great benefit because we do not use the report writer to create those documents. We actually use something in the system called doc templates. So if you look through here, whether it's a subcontract or an AIA document or anything like that, it's done with this doc template. So I'm going to download this one just so you can see what it's doing. As you can see here, it's opening up a Word document. It's real easy to do things like paragraphs and things like that in a Word document. Sorry, just minimized it there. But you can see how this is done. It's a merge off of the record, bringing that information in. So you could use this system to do the complete workflow for you, including creating those documents. When I come back over here and look at the information, you can see we go in and we can price it out. You'll see right here, I can see on each line, if there were multiple lines, how much has been billed to date. I have collaboration on this document. Up across the top, I have a tab for all my change orders. I can see the complete history. So all the change orders, the subcontract, all the invoices that have come in against it with drill down capabilities from here. So I can get to everything I need to get to. With those workflows, what's nice about them, and there's multiple ways to do things. You know, you can use like a titanium or maybe using a Procore for AP bills, and those would flow in automatically. But in this situation, I want to show you a nice feature. Those workflows we set up are truly flows for this document. What that means to you is as I get that invoice and I go in and make sure we're not being billed more than we should be, everything's up to par, I can come right here and tell it to convert it to the next step. So I just created an AP invoice related to that subcontract without having to enter any of this information. All I have to do is put in how much that document is, or the invoice number rather, and then tell it how much they're billing this period. That is all. And when we talk about those attachments, I'm going to open up an email I have over here and just bring it over here just so you can see. All the attachments, yeah, I could browse and pick one to upload or pick a number of them to upload, but we also have complete drag and drop technology. I just made a copy of that and attached it in here. So if I come through and finish this information, I will have an invoice in the system with attachments. And there is some capability built into the software for routing and approval of these invoices. Come back out here and we'll keep moving. Intacct does have complete owner billing capabilities. So if I come back to my project, you'll see that I have the ability to change requests and change orders in the system, and I have the ability to set up the contracts. I can come in, I'll show you this one. This is just an AIA. We can do T&M billing with markups and everything else. Just as a high level, I'll show you this one. So as I go in and I look at this AIA contract, I can see the contract itself, what project's associated with. I can see this schedule of values right here. If I go in behind the scenes to these schedule of values and see all the details on that line, you can see all the information here. And I'm also going to be able to see, as change requests are related to it, I'll see them there in the change orders and the approved changes. I'll be able to see detailed billing information and payment information. This is back to that 360 view that Sage Intacct is creating. Once I have that in the system, I want to show you how easy things like change requests and change orders are. First of all, I should go back for 1 second, because if I have a subcontract document, we'll just do this one right here. Right off the subcontract, assuming it's not coming from somewhere else, like a Procore, I can go right here and say I need to do a new change order. And it's going to do that same thing where it's automatically linked to that subcontract. It's auto numbering it for me. I can, you know, if they have a reference number or something on the vendor side, I can put that in. I can put the scope. I can update a line saying, hey, I need to increase this line by a certain amount or decrease it, or I can add a new line and have that in the system that easily. When we talk about the owner side, we're looking at the change request and change order process. So I'm going to go in and look at a change request. So on the change request itself, this is where I'm going to come in and say, okay, it's related to this project, creating a pending change in that project. So we can have that in a pending change column if we need it. And I can come down here and tell it how it's going to affect my budget and how much we're going to charge for it. I can have as many lines as I want here. When those change requests start becoming a change order, they can be a one-to-one or a one-to-many. And we go into our change order functionality. And within the change order itself, this is where we're defining the contract that it's updating, the line item that it's going to update, create a new line if we need to. And all we're doing is bringing those change requests in. So there's nothing here that I'm double entering in both places. It's bringing all that other information in for me and creating that change order and updating the contract. So real easy process there. I mentioned that we can do the whole billing through the system. So I'm going to go into generate invoices. In this case, we'll do that same contract I just showed you. I can have multiple billing type templates. You saw how I create them. It's just a document template. I can come down here and say, all right, it's for this contract. I can put a through date on it. And I go right here. This process is going to take me into my billing worksheet. So right here, if I scroll down, you can see my schedule of values. I can see the original prices, revisions, approved changes. I can see the revised total, what's been billed to date, the retainage balances, percent billed to date. And I can come in here and say, well, now we're 95% complete with this line. Or I could come right here and say, I need to bill $10,000 on this line. Either way, we can handle stored materials. I can even right off of this document say, I'd like you to bill $20,000 of that retainage in this bill. And it will do that release for me. Creating those other documents that you would normally have to do a release, which would create a new invoice to get paid against. It can all happen in one step. When I'm done, I hit create invoice, which creates the invoice record I mentioned earlier. I'm not printing anything from here. I have a step to review. So when I come back out here and look at this information, I can go in and see exactly what's being done. I can delete it and start over, if I need to, but it's in here as an invoice. So I see all the information, how it's being billed. If there's any sales tax, anything like that on it, I can see it. And I can come right here and I can print an email out of the system. So just so you can see, if I was to go ahead and do this, and I'm sorry, PDF opening up for me here. So there it is, easily creating your 702, 703 type document. So the entire job costing process can be done through the system. You're going to have great reporting in the system. And you can even have some reports that we created for you that are interactive. Remember, I mentioned that WIP report and how people have trouble with this in most of the job costing systems, and they do it outside of the system. It can be date sensitive by the different companies. I could run it off of a project manager. I could run it across all the jobs. I could run it for specific jobs. So maybe I just want to run it on a few jobs here. So we'll just go in here and say those jobs. I could include the children project below those. I can come right here and just say load, and it's going to load that data for me. So now I have my WIP reports. And I mentioned some of those problems that people have had with WIP reports. Well, you're going to see all the usual fields on here: the contract value, the cost to date, the estimated percent complete, the balance to finish, our over under billings. Well, one of the things we did was add this for people that carry their costs in their P&L and need to be able to tie out their WIP to their P&L. Well, you can't always do that if a job runs over multiple years because it all got closed out to retained earnings. Well, in here, we are tracking things like future backlog. This is based on the commitments that haven't been billed, things like that. We can see what happened in prior fiscal years. So the costs that happened in previous years, the revenue, the gross earnings in those years. And then we can see this year, allowing us to tie out to our P&L. The other thing we did here is make it interactive. So if you look right here, I have my estimated cost to complete. Here's my total estimate. Here's my percent complete based on GAAP. In the system, we made this interactive. So you can go in and put in an observed percent complete. You can come right here and say, well, we're really more like 70% complete on this line. And when I hit enter, you're going to notice it made some changes to these columns, not to my budget. I didn't tell it to change the budget. It told me you should really do a budget change then, a revision of this amount, and this should be your budget, making you 70%. I can also post this, driving that into this field, date sensitive. It posted it here, and it posted it on the project where I showed you earlier. Why is that important? I can see when this was last updated, line by line. If I was to roll this report back, it would be able to pull in previous percent completes at that time. And it's given me better reporting overall. The other thing I can do is I can go right here and I can click this little caret, and I can see where the contract values came from. I can see where all the costs came from and drill into it. It's in blue. I can see where the billings came from. So I have all the information in one location. You'll find that to be consistent throughout the product. All right. When I come back out, I want to talk a little bit about the concept of always closing. And what does that mean? Intacct is always up to date. Always. Meaning, when I was over in doing that AP invoice, you never saw me go somewhere like to AP, accounts payable, and do post invoices, post this, post anything. It's always posting, it's always current. So that means your reporting is always current. That means your dashboards are always current. You don't have to worry about, hey, I better go make sure everything's posted before I run those reports. It gives us much better information. It also gives us the ability to do some other things. And one of those things that a lot of our clients are asking about is in cash management. Can we connect to the banks? Yes, we can. So I'm going to go in here into a checking account, one that I know I can still edit, and pull this open just to show you some information here. First of all, this is the way the bank account gets set up. Secondly, if I go in here and check printing, you notice that we can print to blank check stock right out of the system. You don't need a created check, a print boss, any of those types of features. The software can handle it without those. You can also create ACH payments, creating the file to send to your bank. It can auto notify your vendors that you created that payment. So for those of you that have been around maybe something like a TimberScan, or not a TimberScan, the feature sets that allow you to auto send emails and stuff for Sage 300, Sage 100, a lot of the other products, Yardies. We're going to be able to do that out of the system. And then we have our banking cloud. This is the connectivity to your bank. It can also connect to credit cards. With the web-to-web connectivity, it will download all the cleared transactions from the bank as they come through, auto match them with transactions in your system, show you which ones that didn't auto match, allow you to get them into the system. We use the Plaid system. There's over 17,000 banks in this system. So most likely your bank will be in there and be able to be used with this. The last thing I want to talk about today is the flexible reporting in the system. In our financial reporting, we have a couple of different ways to get reports in the system, a couple of different versions of reports, but the financial statement designer, this is something that I think a lot of you are going to really like as I show it, because we're going to be able to use the flexibility of dimensions within this reporting. So I'm going to go ahead and go out here, and I'm going to go into my reporting, and go into financial reports. Couple things off the bat. It comes with this quick start library, meaning you get all of these different financials out of the box. And you don't have to use them all. You can come in, like, let's say, look at this one, the profit and loss 12-month history, and kind of look at what that would kind of look like. And you can decide, yeah, I definitely want that. You just hit install, it's yours. But what I want to talk about is how easy it is to create these and the benefit of dimensions and what you're going to be able to get out of this system. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on Add. And in this first scenario, let's just create a quick balance sheet. So I'm just going to call it balance, and we're going to go into our rows. And I'm going to select the account groups. And I'm going to tell it I need all my assets. And I need all my liabilities. And I need my equity. And we're going to include that on the report. And just like that, I created a current month balance sheet. I can print preview this so you can see it. This is not the exciting point, but by the way, drill down, capability. What I want to show you is what you can really do with this using your dimensions. So let's start off on the columns. Now here's the column. I'm going to click into this column. You can see it's reporting current month. I can go in, change names, things like that. I can tell it how to present itself. But let's say I want this report to give me maybe my locations, my different companies, my entities across the report. Well, in most systems, you'd start creating more columns and you'd have to figure out the formulas and how to function in those. But we have dimensional reporting, which means right here, I can go in and tell it to expand by any dimension. I can say expand it by the locations. And just like that, I have a report that's by my companies without having to do any real work. I could have said, hey, do me a favor, expand that by project. Well, great. Now I'm going to have a financial statement, whether it's P&L or balance sheet if you're carrying things in WIP or whatever, by the different jobs all the way across, including no project. All that detail. But let's take this even having more fun. Let's go ahead and get rid of the whole expansion for right now. And let's go in and say, well, maybe I want year over year. Let's see how easy that is. I'm going to go right here and say add another column. And in this column, you can see it created the same column again, current month. In here, yes, there's prior year, current month. There it is right there. I don't even bother with that. I just go right here and say, offset this 12 months, 22, 23. You can see it. I can call it anything I want. I could expand this one. Maybe we want to know the difference. How easy is that? Well, it's just a summary of these two columns. Let's go ahead and add a column. And on this column, I'm going to say, well, it's a summary. And here's how I need you to summarize it. Do I need them subtracted? Do I need them added? Do I need it divided? Well, I just need you to subtract column 2 and 3. Done. I can call that something different. I might even want to have some conditional highlighting on this. So let's go in here and say we want to do some conditional highlighting. And if it's greater than, let's make it a big number, 200,000. Year over year, I want you to turn it red. I've had people ask me, what if I want multiple conditions? Great, let's add another rule. And in this one, let's say it's less than or equal to $15,000. Now, everything's turning red right now, but instead I want to use multiple colors. This one, I want it to turn red, and that one, I want it to be green. Now I have a year over year report with the difference and color coding, drawing my attention to things. It's really neat how we can do all this stuff, but we're not done. And I'm doing this in front of you guys because, you know, hearing somebody say it's easy and then actually seeing it are two different things. So in this case, just for the sake of this demonstration, on this column right here, I'm going to go ahead and expand it. Let's do it by the companies, because I want to have that X and Y access, right? So Right now, this report looks like this. Let's go out and let's go to our rows. This is something that a lot of our clients have been asking for a long time. I can go to any account group here and change the way it presents to me. So for instance, I might want to go into accounts receivable. I'm just going to say, summarize it by dimension. And I want to see accounts receivable by project. So think about what I did there. I told it to go look at every transaction that hit accounts receivable, find the project on it, and resort and filter it and return it to me. Maybe if you're a client that wants inventory, maybe I want to do that by the actual items in inventory. Maybe I want to break down equity by something, partnerships, things like that. Maybe I want to come down here into accounts payable and tell it to do something completely different. Return that to me by the vendor. Now think about all the work this report's going to do. Preview. And it's done. Now I have it broken down by company. I have accounts receivable broken down by the project within the companies. I have inventory coming in with all of its information. I have AP showing it to me by vendor. All of that information that easily because of dimensional reporting. On this report, I could go in, I could put computations, I could filter it to only run on certain groups, things like that. I can do different formatting, changing, the bolds and stuff like that. I can do notations. I can set up the permissions. I can even set up the next steps for this report. Maybe I want to add this to my dashboard. Great, click there. Maybe I want to schedule this to automatically run. I can do that, all from inside the system. But there's one more thing. I'm going to close that report. You already saw how I could do things by dimensions. I'm going to come right out here and open up one of the ones that comes with the software. So right here. And let's take a look at this. This is called a profit and loss summary. Did I grab the right one? Sorry, I don't think I grabbed the right one, unless somebody changed it on me. Profit and loss summary. I want this one. This is called a project overview. Now realize I'm in the financial report writer, but we store every transaction with all those dimensions on it. You already saw that I could break things out by project. Well, in this particular report, I don't even have GL accounts. My rows are the projects. And in my columns, because we have different journals, different books for all this, because everything gets posted, I can have things like the contract amount come in. All I've done is tell it, hey, by the way, use this book to get that. That easily. I can have my project budget. I can have an estimated gross profit. Why? Because that's just one of the summaries. Subtract 2 and 3. This one divides 4 and 2, but then returns it as a percentage. This is my commitments, my total build, my total cost. And all of a sudden, based on financial records and all the transactions, I have a report that was easy to create that looks like this. A complete job report. And because it's built off of all those transactions, I can drill all the way down into the actual documents in any one of these fields, getting to the information and the things you want at any time. Here's a billing. It's going to take me right into the invoice that was created. Giving me information. Intacct is all about ease of use and information. Now with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop our presentation for today